Coming up today, President Park Geunhye is in Ethiopia, kick-starting a three-nation tour to Africa that's expected to strengthen Korea's political, economic and cultural ties with the region. Speculation swirls that UN Chief Ban Kimoon might run for the South Korean presidency after his second and final term at the world body comes to an end. Plus, Korea's consumer sentiment for May is hit by the government's ongoing corporate restructuring drive. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 26th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Brew. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geunhye is in Ethiopia, the first stop of her trip to East Africa. The president has laid out her vision for Ethiopia and Africa, which she will likely discuss with the country's leaders during summit talks on this Thursday. Our Song Ji-son reports from Addis Ababa.
Brothers by blood. That's how President Ban referred to Korea's relationship with Ethiopia upon arriving in the only African country that sent troops to fight in the Korean War in the 1950s. In an interview with the Ethiopian Herald, the country's state-run daily, Ban pledged Korea will stand as Ethiopia's reliable partner on its path towards growth and development. Ethiopia, boasting economic growth of 10% last year, is eagerly pushing its growth and transformation plan aimed at mid to long-term development. Anticipating the country to emerge as Africa's economic powerhouse, Seoul hopes to expand investment in Ethiopia and help local industries grow. Park listed 3 pillars of cooperation to develop Korea-Ethiopia relations in a mutually beneficial manner to grow and learn together. First, through Korea Aid, a new official development aid program offering health and cultural services on wheels. Seoul will also share its know-how on socio-economic development, which it learned particularly through Korea's Haemaul Undong, a movement of modernizing rural communities. Cultural exchanges will be another key to deepen understanding between the two countries. In summit talks with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn and in a separate session with President Mulatu Teshome on Thursday, President Ban will discuss ways to reinforce cooperation in areas ranging from trade and investment to defense, peacekeeping, and healthcare. Song Ji-son, Arirang News, Addis Ababa.
Now, South Korea's friendly ties with Ethiopia stretch back to the Korean War in the early 1950s, when Ethiopia was the only African country to dispatch troops to help the South. Since then, relations between the two countries have progressed steadily. For a look back at how the countries have supported each other over the years, Oh Seong reports.
Meet Addis Lulu, a chemical engineering student from Ethiopia.
I've completed the Korean language program for 1 year. So now I'm attending my master's program. I was able to know that there was scholarship in Korea, and I have always wanted to come to Korea because of my grandfather has a story with Korea.
Lulu's grandfather was one of the 6,000 Ethiopian soldiers who fought with the South during the Korean War. Emperor Haile Selassie sympathized with Korea's ordeal under Japanese colonization and dispatched a battalion to support the South. Ethiopia lost 121 soldiers in the conflict and more than 500 were injured. After the ceasefire in 1953, Ethiopia helped the South rebuild the country, providing medical support and welfare. Since 1991, Korea has been repaying Ethiopia's generosity with official development assistance.
In terms of the budget supported, Ethiopia is the largest beneficiary among the African countries. KOICA touches upon the goals of areas of focus, which are health, education, rural development, public administration, ICT, and other cross-sector issues such as climate change and gender.
Korea's aid to Ethiopia has so far reached around $108 million, and this year there are 11 bilateral projects underway. Korea also supports veterans' descendants with scholarship for students in Ethiopia from elementary school to university. For postgraduate studies, students like Lulu have the chance to study in Korea. as the unique relationship of Korea and Ethiopia continues down the generations. President Park Geun-hye's visit is widely anticipated to strengthen relations, adding a brand new chapter to their story of friendship. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, one of the purposes of President Park's visit to Africa is promoting Korea as a development partner through the provision of economic and social assistance. To support that goal, the President will launch a new program called Korea Aid during her trip. Ian Shin has more.
During her visit to Africa this week, President Park is unveiling a new government initiative called Korea Aid. That's part humanitarian project, part development cooperation strategy. The program, developed by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Culture, Health, and Agriculture, is part of Korea's contribution of Official Development Assistance, or ODA, to Africa. Through the program, Korea will provide food, medical assistance, and cultural content to the 3 African countries the President is visiting on her trip: Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. President Park will launch the program at Addis Ababa University on Saturday in Ethiopia. Another launch event will be held Monday and Tuesday at Adama Science and Technology University, where nearly 1,600 area residents and college students are expected to attend. The goal of the program is to help area residents become self-reliant. The program will especially focus on providing medical services, supplies, and training to supplement the healthcare systems in each country. A secondary goal is to make the services easily accessible to people in need, so that, as the program's slogan says, no one is left behind. To that end, all of the supplies and services will be mobile. The caravan includes 1 mobile health clinic, 2 ambulances, 4 trucks carrying food and related supplies, an entertainment truck equipped with a wide screen to display cultural and educational videos, and 2 SUVs for administrative personnel. The Foreign Ministry, which announced the program on Wednesday, said the program will continue for the next 2 years. The ministry also said, however, the collaborative and supervising efforts from Korea will continue even after that, in order to extend Korea's aid contribution and help spread Korean culture. Ian Shin, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, UN Secretary-General Ban Kimoon has called on North Korea to end its provocations, fulfill its international obligations and abide by the Security Council's latest resolution. Ban made the remarks during his keynote speech at the opening ceremony of the 11th Jeju Forum. On this Thursday, he said the world must take a firm stance in dealing with North Korea. He also called for more cooperation in Asia and expressed hope for a trilateral summit between South Korea, China and Japan this year. This is the second day of Ban's South Korea visit, but he will leave for Japan later today to attend the G7 summit. He will return to Korea on Saturday, though, to attend a UN NGO conference in Geunhye next week, among other activities. So, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon's trip to Korea this week has sent shockwaves through the domestic political scene. Although the trip focuses on international events, remarks about his future and the divisions in Korean society have led many to speculate that he might be hinting at a run for Korea's top political job. Shin Se-min with the details.
Neither confirming nor denying. Visiting UN Chief Ban Kimoon has been playing his cards close to his chest as speculation swirls he might launch a bid for the South Korean presidency next year. His ambiguous responses to questions on his post-UN future have sent the rumor mill into a frenzy. The general consensus is that he could throw his hat into the ring. Touching down in Korea on Wednesday to join the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity, Ban said South Korea, as it stands today, is too divided. He added that political leaders should work to bring the people together with a president who is willing to abandon everything for national unity. Ban's actions and remarks are being carefully monitored by the ruling and opposition parties. The ruling Saenuri Party has expressed anticipation Ban will decide to run next year. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea is less sure, saying it's inappropriate for Ban to involve himself in domestic political affairs while he is still at the UN. The floor leader of the minor opposition People's Party said the UN chief should have clearly stated that he doesn't intend to run if that's his plan. Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon, a potential candidate in the upcoming presidential race, said Pan should follow the UN recommendation to not take an official position in their national government after their terms are complete. Touching on the reaction to his remarks, Pan said during a breakfast meeting Thursday that the media should not stretch his words. Pan's refusal to offer a definitive answer comes despite the ruling party's eagerness to woo him after its crushing defeat in last month's general election, which cost the party its majority in the National Assembly. 신세민, Arirang News.
A group of South Korean officials have reportedly cancelled plans to visit the Chinese side of the China-North Korea border. The decision comes amid concerns South Korean nationals could be targeted for kidnapping by North Korean agents. Seoul-based Yonhap news agency reported Thursday that around 60 government and public officials were set to visit the area this month for an education program, but the trip has been put on ice indefinitely. South Korea's National Unification Advisory Council has also urged its members to refrain from visiting or starting businesses near the border area. There have also been rumours North Korean special forces are preparing some form of terror attack near the border, but Seoul has dismissed the speculation as groundless. A top US military official says he expects North Korea to collapse much sooner than many of us think due to internal unrest. Park Jong-hong reports.
The collapse of the North Korean regime may not be far off, and we should prepare for that contingency, says the former U.S. Forces Korea commander. At a symposium in Hawaii, Walter Sharp said he recently guaranteed the new USFK commander, General Vincent Brooks, that there would be major changes on the peninsula before his term ends in 2019. Sharp predicted there would be strong provocations by North Korea that could quickly escalate into a much bigger conflict. He added that combined with the instability in North Korea, this would lead to an earlier than expected collapse. He called for the need to prepare, adding that both the UN and China will have roles to play in that event. Sharp said the North's already bad economy further worsened when its ally China joined the latest UN Security Council sanctions. He stressed that a bad economy and a population increasingly exposed to outside information through cell phones and broadcasts would lead to, quote, growing internal pressure within North Korea that will force either the regime to change or to change the regime. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
World leaders have gathered in the Ise-Shima region of Japan for the start of the G7 summit to discuss some of the most pressing matters facing the international community. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe greeted the leaders of Germany, France, Italy, the UK, Canada, the US and the EU at the Ise Jingu Shrine, which they will tour before having a working lunch. Over the next 2 days, they will be discussing a range of issues from the global economy, international terrorism and the refugee crisis to Beijing's claims over islands in the South China Sea. North Korea is also expected to be pretty high on the agenda. US President Barack Obama already discussed the matter with the Japanese Prime Minister Abe in a meeting on earlier this week, where they agreed to boost their defense capabilities against the regime's threats. Global trade in the first quarter of this year has retreated to levels seen 6 years ago. According to the World Trade Organization, the amount of trade among 71 major countries came to roughly $6.94 trillion in the January to March period. It might sound a lot, but that's down almost 8% from last year and marks the first time since 2010 that the first quarter figure has fallen to the $6 trillion range. The decline is attributed to low demand stemming from the slow global growth as well as faltering commodity prices. Despite its exports being on a downward trend, China was still the world's largest exporter, followed by the US and Japan. South Korea ranked 7th, down one notch from last year. And staying with economic news, but more locally based, Korea's consumer sentiment dropped this month, ending 2 straight months of rises posted since March. The Bank of Korea says the consumer sentiment index came in at 99 in May. That's down 2 points from last month. A reading under 100 does mean that pessimists outnumber optimists. The central bank attributes the drop to the government's ongoing corporate restructuring drive that has darkened consumers' outlook. Large-scale layoffs are expected once restructuring goes into full swing, especially within the country's ailing shipping industry. The monthly index reflects the overall economic outlook of consumers, their living conditions and future spending plans. The total sum of Korea's household debt, which includes sales on credit, has hit yet another record high. The Bank of Korea says the amount stood at roughly $1 trillion as of the end of the first quarter of this year, and that is the largest amount logged since 2002, when related data was first put together. It's also up $17.5 billion from the end of last year, marking the fastest pace of growth on record during the first quarter. Compared to the previous quarter, however, the rise in household debt in the first 3 months of the year actually slowed quite significantly as well, as the government's tighter guidelines for screening loan applicants kicked in early this year. Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour on a Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. We have all the information on President Park's trip to East Africa as well. Have a great day. Goodbye.